Welcome, Noviate. You seek the strange, confusing, and esoteric knowledge of how to level properly in Elder Scrolls IV Oblivion? While it does take some dedication and planning, you can play Oblivion without having to flick the difficulty slider back and forth like a skooma addict playing with a light switch. So join me as we learn the forbidden knowledge of Oblivion leveling. So there's a very technical way to level in Oblivion, and we'll get into how to do that, but in my opinion, that makes playing Oblivion really unfun. The goal of this guide is to help you level properly in Oblivion, while still making it relatively fun and enjoyable. I'll also preface this guide by saying if you already have a very specific playstyle that you're going for or want to roleplay a very specific character, that you should just go ahead and do that. Even if you don't understand the leveling, the game will play just fine, and that's what the difficulty slider is for. This is a guide more for those who want to begin to understand leveling properly, as well as people who want to do a completionist run of Oblivion. My main goal, though, is to help you level in a way where you're not just counting your skill increases with a spreadsheet and you are actually enjoying the game and have fun. There are plenty of ways to cheese Oblivion with spells and gear so that you can play on any difficulty. That's not this tutorial. I will probably make a busted Oblivion tutorial in the future because I think they're really funny, but this guide is to help you through Oblivion, but you still want to feel the challenge of the game without having to touch the difficulty slider all the time. So even if you follow this guide, expect to die every so often, but it shouldn't happen a lot, and you shouldn't have to touch the difficulty slider too much either. So let's get into the meat and potatoes of how leveling in Oblivion works. Before getting into the guide, it would mean a lot if you would like the video and subscribe to the channel, as well as consider becoming a member to the channel. It goes a long way to making more of these videos. Thank you. I also think it's important that we hold space for the absurdity of making a guide for a game that came out in 2006 that has an inherently busted leveling system. So please follow me down this absurd rabbit hole as we break down the Oblivion leveling system. So at the root of your character is their attributes. These influence many things, one of which being your stats, like health, magicka, and fatigue. Attributes also affect less defined things as well. First we have strength, which influences the damage you do with melee weapons, including hand-to-hand. It also affects how much fatigue you have and how much weight you can carry in your inventory. The skills governed by strength are hand-to-hand, blunt, and blade. We then have intelligence, which dictates how much magicka you have. The skills that govern intelligence are conjuration, mysticism, and alchemy. We then have willpower. That affects how much you take from magical attacks, your maximum fatigue, and how quickly your magicka regenerates. The skills that govern willpower are alteration, destruction, and restoration. Then we have agility, which helps you avoid getting staggered, the damage you deliver with bows, and also how much fatigue you have. Skills governed by agility are marksman, security, and sneak. We then have endurance, which affects how much fatigue and health you have. Endurance also determines how much your health increases every time you level. The skills governed by endurance are block, armor, and heavy armor. We then also have speed. Speed just really determines how fast you run in the game, and the skills that govern speed are light armor, athletics, and acrobatics. The final of the skill attributes is personality, which determines how well you can persuade others and how good of prices you can get when buying and selling. The skills governed by personality are mercantile, speech, craft, and illusion. I always find it funny, lore-wise, that illusion is governed by personality. I get that illusion is the odd man out of all the other magical skills, and it does loosely make sense for it to be in personality. I just imagine a character with like low willpower and intelligence, but high personality, but still able to do illusion. Like, what does that get you? Like a literal magician pulling rabbits out of a hat? Maybe a character who can do some sleight of hands tricks? I'm not 100% sure. Finally, we have luck, which decides things like crit hits, misses, staggers, catching diseases, loot, and skills. Luck is everywhere and nowhere, so it doesn't govern any skills at all. So now, how do we level up, and what happens when we level up? To level up, you just need to raise some combination of your major skills 10 times. Raising your minor skills has no effect on leveling, but does matter when you do level. So when you level up, you get to pick 3 attributes to increase, and depending on how much you've leveled up your skills associated with those attributes determines how much that attribute raises. So we'll take strength as an example. During your most recent level, if you didn't raise your skills in hand-to-hand, blunt, or blade, you can only raise your strength 1 point. If you raised your hand-to-hand, blunt, and blade 1 to 4 times, you get to raise your strength 2 points. 5 to 7 is 3 points, 8 to 9 is 4 points, and 10 and above is 5 points, which is the most you can get in a single level. So if you can raise your skills 10 points in the 3 attributes that you're leveling up, you can boost your attributes a total of 15 points per level, which is a lot. If you pick attributes you didn't raise your skills in, the worst you can get is only raising your attributes by 3 points, which is really bad. So this is the grand flaw in Oblivion's leveling. As you level, the NPCs level up around you. If you're not leveling properly, the NPCs are going to destroy you in raw stats. And this is where people choose to move the difficulty slider because the game gets too tough. So it's important for you to level your skills properly before going up in level, so you can get the most out of raising your attributes. The only catch, though, is that you can only raise 3 attributes. So which 3 should you pick? From my experience playing Oblivion, there is one attribute you need to make sure you're hitting every level, and that is endurance. Endurance is the most important stat because of the fact of it determining how much health you get each time you level, and it only cares about your base endurance, so you can't buff your way out of it. I think this is the main reason why people think Oblivion is too hard. They neglect endurance. They level up a bunch each time, getting a really small amount of health points each time, and then get one-shotted by an ogre or something like that. Most enemies in the game have a weakness you can exploit, but that's rather hard to do if they just need to land 3 hits on you and send you to Oblivion. A lesser important attribute, but still matters, is willpower, because it helps you from getting wrecked by magic. So I would recommend focusing on willpower every other level at least. Also, in your playstyle, incorporating more defense is important, like alteration, heavy and light armor, kiting enemies, or conjuration to make tanks, and blocking. Of course, if you have a sneaky character, you don't need as much defense, but there are going to be encounters you can't sneak through, and then you're going to get screwed. So now that we understand leveling and the philosophy we're going for when we level up, we can now set up our character. As far as picking a race goes, I think you can pretty much pick any race. I would say a high elf would still be the hardest race to choose because of their weakness to magicka. I prefer playing as a Breton because I like playing as a battle mage in the early game, and I really like the resistances to magic. If you want to min-max with another race, picking a race with high starting endurance is good, like Nord, Redguard, or Orc. As far as picking a burst sign goes, anything that helps endurance is ideal. So Warrior is good, but probably the Lady is even better because it improves willpower and endurance. Another burst sign I would consider is the Thief because it gives you 30 points, 10 in agility, speed, and luck. I think starting at 60 luck for your character is really good because when you level up, you can only raise your luck 1 point at a time, which is super inefficient. So it makes a lot of sense to immediately throw 10 points at luck and then never touch it again, because it doesn't make sense to only put 1 point per level. Now for making our class. Picking combat, magic, or stealth doesn't really matter because you can just pick whatever you want to do more of. Picking your 2 attributes matters, obviously. You can pick luck to give you an extra 5 points. If you do that with the Thief and get 65, you'll be in a really good place with your luck stat. You should also pick endurance, or possibly willpower as well, because just getting the buffs to those attributes is really important. So it helps you with your defense and your health.
Picking your major skills is also relatively arbitrary, just as long as you pick one for each attribute. So that way, during a level, you will eventually level up no matter what attribute you're using. I chose hand-to-hand, alteration, alchemy, bows, light armor, armor, speechcraft. I picked these because, as a battle mage, I don't necessarily need to use them, which gives me flexibility when I level up. As a battle mage, I primarily leveled up strength, willpower, and endurance. I'm punching, cutting, bashing, using restoration, destruction, and alteration spells, and I'm fixing my armor, blocking a lot, and wearing heavy armor. To me, this is the most streamlined, picking strength and willpower, but you can do any combo as long as you're also picking endurance. You could choose agility and intelligence if you want to use conjuration, bows, and sneaking. If you want to use heavy armor and sneak, just don't use your boots. You'll still be able to sneak around with heavy armor. So once you pick which attributes to focus in on, this is how you will level for the early game. If you're a battle mage like I chose, it's a good time to do the Arena, Fighters Guild, Knights of the Nine, and the main quest. Once you get your endurance to 100, you'll get 10 health points per level, so you definitely won't get one-shotted, and you can figure out how to take down your enemies. Here's where the game really opens up, because you can now do whatever you want, really. Let's say you've just been focusing on melee to this point. Well, now you can level up your magic and sneak skills. No problem, because each level you're going to get 10 health points. I would generally say you just need to hit level 20, so you can see all of the content. Once your endurance and other desired attributes are level 100, you can ignore leveling, which is why I pick major skills I don't really plan on using, so that way I can just stop leveling and max out my skills. The only issue with this playstyle is you may have to grind your endurance skills a little if you make a character not really using block, heavy armor, or armor. You can always go to a trainer for these to get at least 5 points in endurance. So there you have it, Noviate. You can now play Oblivion without having to touch the difficulty slider every 5 minutes. Like I said before, this is a good guide for beginners or people who just want to do a completionist run, because you should be able to see everything by doing this. If this video does well, I think I'll work on some other types of builds and this other strange ways you can play the game. If you want to let me know in the comments and see what kind of builds or play styles you'd like to see, let me know and I'll see if I can maybe make a guide on it. Thanks for watching my Oblivion guide. It would mean a lot if you would like the video and subscribe to the channel. Also, if you would consider becoming a member of the channel, it really helps making this content and it also gets you a shout out at the end of each of the videos. Thank you.